Once you start talking about, oh, we're looking for exciting fights, that just reminds me of Arturo. Because Arturo, there's certain guys you just stayed away from. You know, like the Angel Fierros of the world. You know, you're not going to have Arturo Gatti fight Chico Corrales. You're not going to, Floyd Mayweather. Those types of guys are just not going to match up well for him and his style.
Welcome into Boxing Scene's top stories here on ProBox TV. Download the ProBox TV app. Never fall behind in your boxing news. Well, Isaac Pitbull Cruz, known for his exciting style, fell short last time out against Rayo Valenzuela. Well, he wants to keep the excitement going. That's right. His manager, Sean Gibbons, says he won't take the mandatory rematch with Valenzuela. Instead, wants entertaining fights, which is coming up February 1st against Angel Fierro in San Diego on the PBC card. Is this the right move? Tell me, answer those questions. Paulie Malignaggi, Chris Algieri, the champs in the house. Paulie, when you look at this, we don't want to rematch Valenzuela because it wouldn't be that exciting. Is that code for we can't beat this guy? Is that the right move for Isaac Pitbull Cruz, who has a huge fan base in Southern California?
You know, there's some truth to that. You know, it's a bad style matchup to go up against Valenzuela again. But also sometimes when you get that rematch, sometimes you want that in between fighter. Sometimes you want a little bit of breathing space from that opponent before you get that rematch. It's not always good to go directly into an immediate rematch. So, you know, this is a fight with a stylistically more compatible opponent as far as, he won't have to look for him. He won't have to, the deficiencies in Pitbull's footwork won't be so glaring in a fight like this because they'll probably both be in front of each other. It'll be a more fan-friendly fight, sure, because when you fighting smart nowadays is code for fighting boring, right? So you can always, downplay it that way and say, hey, listen, we can't fight as smart as Valenzuela, so, we're going to disguise that as he's fighting boring, and we want to make it an exciting fight against a less intelligent boxing opponent, which of course also translates to more exciting. I mean, listen, high contact, more physical output, more fighting time at close to mid to close range. That also creates a more fan-friendly fight. So, there's some truth to it, but it's also, this is management. Gibbons is one of the guys who's had so many of the top fighters in the sport, so he's not born yesterday, man. He kind of knows how to maneuver around the business. He knows how to talk to the press, but he also knows how to maneuver his fighters in a way to maximize their, not only their promotability, but also their relativity. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Their relevance.
Relevance. Thank you very much. Chris, where were you there?
That's what I'm here for.
Relevance. Yes, keep him relevant by, not getting him outclassed by a guy who's going to keep moving around again. So I like that. I actually like the idea here, And I could still see the rematch happening later if Valenzuela holds on to his title. Because like I said, sometimes a rematch going right back into it doesn't always happen, and sometimes it's not always smart to go right back into a rematch. Sometimes you need a little breathing space.
What I'm curious about, Chris, when you think about this tactical decision to stay away from Rayo Valenzuela, as Paulie said, maybe the deficiencies in footwork won't be as apparent. Was it Valenzuela himself, or did Pitbull have deficiencies in his game that an opponent, Fierro or anybody else, could maybe take advantage of? What's your thought?
Both. Yeah. It was both. I mean, we saw it in the Cabrera fight with Pitbull Cruz. I mean, he had a lot of trouble with Cabrera, who was another tall southpaw. And then you got Valenzuela, who's a tall southpaw with power, and actually came in fantastic shape, had a great training camp, just looked like a whole different guy. We spoke about him a lot, the champ and I, Paulie Malignaggi, about Valenzuela leading into the fight, and we just didn't think that he was going to be able to stay disciplined enough. Because in flashes, he had shown what he was able to do that night with Isaac Cruz, but he'd never done it for an entire fight. He'd never done it for 10 rounds. Certainly he'd never done it for 12 rounds. Guess what? He did. He showed up that night and he did it for 12 rounds. He fought in a highly, highly disciplined fight with all the skills and the assets and the talent that he has, he brought to the ring in the night that he really needed it against a very, very tough and rugged Isaac Cruz. And then in terms of Isaac Cruz not taking this rematch, or at least the immediate rematch, I saw this coming a mile away. And we actually said on our air, he should not fight him right away. He should go out there and get another win, get his profile back up a little bit, and then potentially fight for the rematch, or see if someone else has the title at this point. Because 140 seems to be musical chairs lately. Guys are coming up from different weight classes. Guys are moving off in weight classes. Titles are changing hands. Upsets are happening all the time. Not massive upsets, but minor upsets. This was really a minor upset. A lot of people were actually betting Valenzuela going into this fight because they had seen what he was doing in his gyms and who he had behind him. So in terms of this fight not happening right away, not really surprised. And this Fierro fight, Fierro's tough, man. He comes forward, he can bang, he's got a lot of knockouts too. It's going to be a fun fight, and if you're looking for entertainment, they got the right guy.
What I'm curious about, Paulie, and it's expression you hear a lot in combat sports across the board, is you can be exciting or you can be a world champion. Right? That you have to make a choice in a sense stylistically. As you said, sometimes you choose to be the exciting guy. You can make a ton of money. We all remember Gotti Ward. Not everybody remembers they weren't the best guys in the division by a long shot when they had that epic trilogy. This idea of I can be exciting or I can be a world champion, is it a choice you make or can you go back and forth? Your thought?
You know, I think the key always lies in the gray more so than the black and white. Even if you talk about Gotti and Ward, Arturo Gotti did win major world titles in his career. So, you know, there's probably a bit of moderation there. As far as, yeah, sometimes you want to be really exciting, but not to the point where it costs you too much. And at the same time, you also want to be a champion, but not to the point where you're also where nobody wants to ever watch you and see you, right? So there's a little bit of moderation. You're right there in that you need a little bit of both at times, and you can't just have one. Ideally, you need to become a world champion in your career. I think the fact that Valenzuela was able to become a world champion in that fight with Cruz, it changes the game for him. It changes him at the negotiating table. Even once you've been a world champion, even if you lose that world championship, you are now an ex-world champion, your stock at the negotiating table has now risen, because even new champions always prefer to defend against ex-champions. It's a more promotable fight. It's an easier fight to make. It's a more sellable fight to the public. So by winning a world championship, what Valenzuela did there, he'd been very exciting already in his career. I mean, he sometimes too much. Like the champ Chris said, a lot of times he hadn't been disciplined enough in many of his fights. But by doing what he did that night, even if he loses the title in his next fight, he's always right there now to be at the negotiating table for a title defense of what would be a current champion. He could always step into a title shot. That's what tends to happen to you once you become a world champion. You enter this room, so to speak, at the negotiating table that other guys aren't really allowed to go into. And then, of course, you can become even bigger and become bigger than the belts. But that is only for really special fighters. Ultimately, though, you got to have that championship to step into the next room.
When you look at this situation, Chris, I want to ask you, Tim Tszyu keeps popping in my head. Because I think about the Fundora fight, and we all went, yeah, that guy's what, 6'11"? Yeah, weird style, awkward, there was a cut. Next fight, he gets knocked out very quickly, and he's almost off the map, or needs to climb back up. Is Isak Pitbull Cruz in a similar spot where we can say, yeah, Rayo Valenzuela was tall, southpaw, had real power, did have discipline, as you guys pointed out, but 2 in a row, you start going, maybe it's you. Is there pressure on him in this fight?
You know, I don't think so. I think he is full. You mentioned the Arturo Gotti relevance. You know, Arturo, like you said, champ, he was a world champion at 130, 140, and was IBO champ, I think, at 147, not one of the major recognized ones. I think he's fallen into an Arturo Gotti situation. Arturo won back-to-back, had lost back-to-back fights, and was still wildly popular, still made a ton of money, was able to get big matchups, was able to get title fights. So I think Isak Cruz has kind of been relegated into that. You know, you're talking about, once you start talking about, oh, we're looking for exciting fights, that just reminds me of Arturo. Because Arturo, there's certain guys you just stayed away from. You know, like the Angel Fierros of the world. You know, you're not going to have Arturo Gotti fight Chico Corrales. You're not going to, you know, Floyd Mayweather. Those types of guys are just not going to match up well for him and his style. But then you put him with a Jesse James Leija. You put him with a Gianluca Branco. You put him with, you know, these other, you put a Mickey Ward. You put him with these other guys, and it makes for epic fights and fights that he can win. So I think Isak Cruz, they're going to be handling him a little bit differently. And Sean Gibbons is a fantastic manager. He's one of the most compassionate managers out there, really believes genuinely in his charge's abilities. And I think they got a little bit ahead of themselves, a little bit over the skis with what they had in Isak Cruz. At the end of the day, the guy's like, what, 5'4"? You know, you're fighting at 140 pounds. Valenzuela's like 5'11". There's going to be some things that you're going to have to work around. And he doesn't have like this epic one-punch power that is going to completely be able to change every fight. He's a rough customer. He comes in. He's banging with both hands. He's durable. He's a small target. But at the end of the day, who you match him up with is really going to matter.
He's an exciting fighter, always fun to watch. As long as you're fun to watch, you know you're going to make money in the boxing world. It's kind of our thing here also at ProBox TV. Well, we're back December 7th. Ireland was outstanding. We come back with another Irish main event. Great crowd, great fights. Don't miss it.
ProBox TV Contender Series. On December 7th, look for an all-out Irish war as Dylan the Real Deal Moran battles Tyrone the Mighty Celt McKenna at the top of a stacked ProBox-worthy card.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.